The bus screamed to a stop so hard that 3 passengers were thrown forward, and a woman's basket of tomatoes burst open across the floor of the Danfo. Horns blared. A man in a suit banged his fist on the window and shouted at the driver to be careful. And in the middle of the chaos, a tall, sweat-soaked conductor named Tunde threw himself between 2 men who had just pulled out cutlery and were seconds from spilling blood over a fare dispute. "Oya, oya, put him down!" Tunde roared, gripping both wrists at once, his voice cutting through the noise like a whip. "Nobody go die for 20 naira wahala today, I swear." That was the first time Adaeze ever truly saw him, not as a shouting, sweating conductor hanging off the side of a rickety yellow bus, but as a man who had just stood between 2 strangers and possible death, without a second's hesitation, without asking who was right. She would replay that moment in her mind for years to come. Because before that morning, she, like everyone else in Lagos, had looked at men like Tunde and seen nothing worth looking at twice. If you've ever been told that the person you love is beneath you, stay with this story till the end, because what happens to Adaeze and Tunde will make you question everything you think you know about worth. And if stories like this move you, hit subscribe right now, drop a like, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because trust me, you don't want to miss where this one goes. Let's begin. Lagos woke up the way it always did. Loud, impatient, and unwilling to wait for anybody.
Yaba!
Danfo buses screeched through Yaba. Hawkers balanced trays of bread and boiled eggs on their heads, and university students in wrinkled shirts jogged toward bus stops, praying they wouldn't be late for an 8 o'clock lecture. Adaeze stood at the roadside that Monday morning, adjusting her bag on her shoulder, scanning the traffic for an empty Danfo. She was 22, a 400-level law student at the University of Lagos, and everybody who knew her described her the same way. Brilliant, graceful, destined for greatness. Her father owned one of the biggest logistics companies in Lagos. Her mother sat on the board of a foundation for widows. Adaeze had grown up with drivers, house help, and a life that most Lagosians only saw in movies. None of that mattered when the Danfo pulled up beside her, packed to the brim, and the conductor, a lanky young man with a faded Manchester United jersey and a voice like gravel, began shouting for space that didn't exist. "Oh, Shodi, one chance! Enter with your change, oh no be bank we day!" That was Tunde. Adaeze squeezed into the bus reluctantly,
Come on,
holding
bring your
her
hand.
bag close to her
Watch your
chest
step.
the way her mother had taught her.
Thank
Never
you.
trust a crowd in Lagos. Beside her, 2 of her course mates, Bimpi and Kioma, were already seated, whispering and giggling. "See this conductor," Bimpi muttered, rolling her eyes as Tunde hung halfway out of the bus, banging the roof to signal the driver. "These Agbero people, honestly, no home training." "Imagine calling himself a Unilag something," Kioma added with a smirk, though nobody had said any such thing. "As if Unilag dey enter their mouth." Adaeze said nothing. She was used to her friend's commentary. It was background noise, like the hooting horns and the blaring music from roadside speakers. She stared out the window instead, half listening to Tunde argue with a passenger over change, his voice rising and falling with practiced patience. She had no idea, sitting there with her bag hugged to her chest, that the loud young man shouting fares into the Lagos morning would one day hold her entire world together with his bare hands. By the time they reached her stop, Adaeze had already forgotten his face. She wouldn't forget it for long. Over the following weeks, Adaeze found herself on Tunde's bus more mornings than not. It wasn't intentional. His route simply matched hers, and in Lagos, you learned to stick with what worked. But slowly, without meaning to, she began to notice things. She noticed that when an old woman struggled to climb into the bus, Tunde didn't shout at her to hurry. He reached down, took her basket, and half lifted her by the elbow, murmuring, "Easy, mama, no rush. We know they go anywhere without you." She noticed that when a young girl's phone fell from her pocket unnoticed, Tunde chased the bus down at the next stop, breathless, to return it, refusing the 200 naira she tried to press into his palm as thanks. She noticed that unlike other conductors who rounded up the fare in their own favor, Tunde counted out every single naira of change, even when passengers weren't watching. Then came the afternoon that changed everything. Adaeze had a moot court presentation that day, and her mind had been a storm of nerves and case law all morning. She got off the bus in a rush, hurried into the faculty building, and it wasn't until 2 hours later, standing in front of her professor, that she realized her bag was gone. Panic hit her like cold water. Her laptop was in that bag. Her project files, 3 months of work, were in that bag. And so was almost her entire semester's allowance, which her father had transferred that same morning for tuition balance and textbooks. She ran back to the bus stop, breath ragged, tears already threatening. The Danfo was long gone. God, please, she whispered to herself, pacing beside the road. Please, please, please. She didn't know that. Several kilometers away, Tunde had found the bag wedged beneath the back seat after his last passenger disembarked. He didn't open it beyond a glance to find identification. He simply told the driver to hold the next 2 runs, grabbed the bag, and began asking around Yaba for the unilag girl in blue blouse, always dey sit for window. It took him almost 3 hours. 3 hours of walking from bus stop to bus stop, describing her to strangers, ignoring the fares he was losing by not working. When he finally found her, sitting on a concrete bench outside her faculty, face blotchy from crying, he simply held the bag out to her. I think this one na yours, he said, slightly out of breath. I check am. Nothing day inside way I remove. Laptop day there, money day there. I just want make sure say na correct person I dey give am. Adaeze stared at him, then at the bag, then back at him, unable to speak for a moment. When she finally opened it with trembling hands and found everything exactly as she'd left it, the laptop, the tuition money, even a 200 naira note tucked in the side pocket, something inside her chest cracked open. Why? She finally asked, wiping her face. Why would you do all this for a stranger? Tunde shrugged, as though the question confused him. Because so my mama trained me. If I no return am, wait and I go tell God when I dey pray for better life? He turned to leave. Adaeze called after him before she could stop herself. Wait. What's your name? Tunde, he said, glancing back with the faintest smile. You go still see me for bus tomorrow? I know they run Comet for Lagos. She laughed, a real laugh through leftover tears, for the first time that entire day. From that day, something shifted between them. It started small. A good morning that lingered a second too long.
Good morning,
A seat
Tunde.
safe near the window when the bus
Morning,
was full.
Adaeze.
Questions
Enter inside.
that went beyond fares and change. How you take day unilag sef? Tunde asked her one evening, as the bus idled in traffic and most passengers had dozed off or buried themselves in their phones. You be law student, Abi? Yes. Final year, Adaeze said. It's a lot. Reading, moot court, internship applications. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning. At least na drowning way go bring you money for the end, Tunde said with a small, tired laugh. Better than my own drowning way, no dey bring anything. Something in his voice made her look at him properly. Really look. What do you mean? He hesitated. Then, perhaps because the bus was quiet and the evening felt private, in a way mornings never did, he told her. He told her about gaining admission to study business administration 3 years ago. How proud his father had been, how his mother had cried tears of joy at the admission letter. He told her about his father's sudden death from a heart condition nobody knew he had, and how within a month, the family's small income had vanished with him. He told her about his mother, a seamstress whose hands now shook too much to sew as fast as before, and his 2 younger siblings still in secondary school, whose fees didn't pay themselves. So I dropped the admission, he said simply, staring out at the traffic. I no even tell my mama say I don't drop am. I just start hustle for park, conductor work small, until I fit balance house rent and their school fees. Someday I still go back to school. That's the plan. You still read? Adaeze asked quietly. Every night, he admitted, almost embarrassed. Business textbook, sometimes novel. I no one forget book. Adaeze sat with that for a long moment, watching this loud, rough-edged conductor who shouted fares into the Lagos chaos every single day, carrying a discipline and a sacrifice that most people she knew, people with far more privilege, couldn't have survived a week of. I could help you, she offered suddenly, with your English essays, your business terms, whatever you're reading. If you want. Tunde turned to look at her, surprised. Why you go do that? Because, Adaeze said, meeting his eyes, I think you deserve someone in your corner. That evening began something neither of them could name yet, but both of them felt. Their conversations grew longer. Longer than fair arguments, longer than Danfo rides could naturally allow. Some evenings, Adaeze would wait at the park after Tunde's shift, and they would sit on an overturned crate near the mechanic's shed, talking until the sky turned orange and then indigo. She helped him rewrite sentences, correct his grammar, understand basic accounting principles from the dusty textbook he carried everywhere. He, in turn, made her laugh in a way her polished university friends never managed, teasing her about her big grammar, mimicking her serious courtroom voice until she doubled over laughing. "Objection, your worship," he would say in an exaggerated accent, waving an imaginary gavel. "This Danfo fair no follow due process." "You're impossible," she'd say, still laughing. "No, I'm just correct," he'd reply, grinning. Before her exams, when she called him at midnight, voice shaking with anxiety over a case she couldn't memorize, he stayed on the phone for 2 hours.
"You have worked so hard for this, Adaeze.
Occasionally saying,
just breathe, I know you will
go do
super well.
You be the sharpest
I believe
person
in
way I
you.
saw be.
Go and
Just
make me
breathe."
proud."
Slowly, without either of them announcing it, admiration deepened into something neither could deny. It was Tunde who said it first, on a quiet evening after her last exam, when she'd come to celebrate with a small bag of suya she'd bought for them to share. "Adaeze," he said carefully, turning the paper bag over in his hands instead of eating. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me well." "Okay," she said, suddenly nervous. "I don't try to no feel this thing," he admitted, voice low. "Because I know say the two of us no day the same level. I be conductor. You be lawyer, way they come. But I don't fall in love with you, and I no fit continue to hide 'em." Adaze's heart pounded so loudly she was certain he could hear it. "I feel the same way," she whispered. "I've felt it for weeks. I was just too scared to say it." They both knew, sitting there in the fading Lagos light, that what they'd just admitted to each other would not be simple. Society did not smile on love stories like theirs. Her family, her school, Lagos itself, with its sharp tongue and sharper judgment. "We go keep this to ourselves for now," Tunde said finally, "until we sure how to carry Am." Adaeze nodded, though a small, cold seed of fear had already planted itself in her chest. If you're feeling the tension building already, imagine how it felt for them, because Lagos was about to make sure their secret didn't stay a secret for long. Drop a comment right now and tell me. Do you think love like this can survive Lagos society? Let's see if you're right. Chapter 5. The secret lasted 6 weeks. It ended on a Thursday afternoon when Bimpe, the same coursemate who had once mocked Tunde on that first bus ride, happened to be crossing the road near Adaze's stop and saw her climb down from the Danfo, laughing, as Tunde reached out to steady her by the elbow with familiarity that no ordinary passenger-conductor relationship could explain. Bimpe didn't say a word. She simply raised her phone and took the picture. By nightfall, the image had made its way onto a university gossip page with over 40,000 followers. The caption read, "Unilag law student and her Danfo conductor boyfriend? Lagos, si wahala." By morning, it had over 10,000 shares. Adaeze's phone would not stop buzzing. Classmates she barely spoke to were suddenly messaging her, some mocking, some morbidly curious. In her lecture hall, she felt eyes crawling over her skin, heard whispers stop and start the moment she walked past. "Zero? All that grammar, and she carry conductor," a girl muttered, just loud enough for Adaeze to hear. Her lecturer, a stern older woman who had always respected Adaeze's brilliance, pulled her aside after class with an expression somewhere between concern and disappointment. "Adaeze, is this true? A conductor? Do you understand what people will say about your future? Your reputation, this profession you're entering?" Adaeze had no answer that would satisfy her. But nothing prepared her for the phone call from her mother, voice trembling with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. "Your father just saw it. He is on his way home right now. Adaeze, what have you done to this family's name?" By the time she arrived home that evening, her father was waiting in the parlor, standing rather than sitting. A bad sign she recognized instantly. "Sit down," he said, voice deathly calm, which was somehow worse than shouting. "Daddy, I said sit down." She sat. "Is it true?" he asked. "Are you seeing a bus conductor?" "His name is Tunde," Adaeze said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "And yes, I love him." Her father's jaw tightened. "You love him. You, my daughter, future lawyer who I have poured everything into. You love a man who shouts for coins on a Danfo bus?" "He is not just a conductor, Daddy. He's kind. He's honest. I don't care what he is," her father exploded, slamming his hand against the side table. "Do you know what people will say? Do you know what this does to our name? To your future clients? To this family? You will end this today." Her mother, sitting nearby with tears streaming silently down her face, whispered, "Please, Adaeze. Please, for us." That night, Adaeze cried harder than she had in years, not because she doubted her feelings for Tunde, but because she understood, for the first time, how much choosing him might cost her. Chapter 6. Tunde heard about the photo the next morning from another conductor, who showed him the post on a cracked phone screen with a laugh that wasn't unkind, just amused. Tunde didn't laugh. He found Adaeze waiting for him that evening at their usual spot near the mechanic's shed, her eyes swollen from crying, her hands trembling as she recounted her father's words. Tunde listened in silence, jaw tightening more with every sentence. When she finished, he exhaled slowly and said the words that broke both their hearts.
Adaeze, you deserve a better life than this.
Maybe your papade right." "What?" She stared at him, stricken. "Hear me," he said gently, though his voice cracked. "You get big future. Law, better life, everything way your papa build for you. Me, I be conductor. Tomorrow I no fit even promise you say I go get money to buy fuel. If I love you well, maybe the correct thing not to release you. Make you marry person way go match your level, way no go bring shame come your family." "Don't you dare," Adaeze said, standing so fast her chair scraped loudly against the ground. "Don't you dare decide for me what I deserve. You think love is measured by how much money is in a man's pocket. I have watched you return money that wasn't yours when nobody was looking. I have watched you sacrifice everything for your family without complaint. Do you know how many rich men I know who don't have half your character?" "Adaeze, no. Listen to me." Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. "Character is worth more than money, Tunde. I chose you knowing exactly who you are, and I am not walking away because Lagos wants to laugh at us." Tunde's eyes glistened, though he fought it. "Your papa go disown you." "Then he will disown me," Adaeze said, quieter now but resolute. "But I will not disown myself." 3 days later, her father delivered the ultimatum he had been threatening since the photo surfaced. "Choose," he said, standing in the doorway of the house she'd grown up in, arms folded, face unreadable. "Choose this family, this future I have built for you, or choose that conductor. You cannot have both." Adaeze looked at her mother, who would not meet her eyes. She looked at the house that held every memory of her childhood. And then she picked up the single suitcase she had packed the night before, walked past her father without another word, and left. She chose love. And love, that night, had absolutely nowhere for her to sleep except a cramped one-room apartment that smelled of paint and rust, where Tunde sat waiting for her on the edge of a narrow bed, guilt written all over his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered as she walked in. "I'm so sorry you have to live like this." "Don't apologize," Adaeze said, setting down her suitcase and managing a tired, determined smile. "We'll figure it out. Together." Chapter 7. Together, it turned out, was harder than either of them imagined. The one-room apartment had no running water most days. The single fan groaned all night but did little against the Lagos heat. Adaeze, who had never once worried about the price of Gary, now counted every naira before spending it. Tunde began working even longer hours, starting his shift before sunrise, ending well after midnight, taking extra runs whenever he could. Adaeze picked up freelance research and typing jobs between her final coursework, submitting assignments from a shared laptop with a cracked charger held together by tape. Some nights, they had nothing to eat but bread and a shared sachet of pure water, and they would sit on the floor, backs against the wall, and somehow still find something to laugh about. A stubborn passenger, a professor's strange lecture, anything to keep the darkness from swallowing them whole. But temptation, as it does, found its way to Tunde on an ordinary Tuesday evening, when he least expected it. An elderly market woman named Mama Ngozi boarded his bus that evening, exhausted, clutching a worn black nylon bag to her chest as though her life depended on it. 2 stops before her destination, she rushed off in a hurry, distracted by a phone call, and forgot the bag entirely. Tunde noticed it beneath the seat almost immediately. He opened it, expecting foodstuff or fabric, and found instead a thick stack of naira notes, more money than he had ever held in his life at once. Tucked inside, a folded note read, "For Ife's operation, please God, make you reach on time." His hands shook. He knew instantly the desperate temptation this represented. He and Adaeze hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Rent was due in a week, and they were short. Nobody had seen him find the bag. Nobody would ever know. He sat frozen for almost a full minute, the bus idling, other passengers waiting impatiently. Then he closed the bag, tucked it against his chest, and told the driver he needed 30 minutes. For 2 days, Tunde searched Lagos for Mama Ngozi, asking at markets, describing her to strangers, retracing every stop on his route, sacrificing wages he desperately needed. He finally found her collapsed in grief at a bus stop in Mushin, having assumed the money for her granddaughter Ife's emergency heart surgery was gone forever, the surgery date slipping further out of reach with every passing hour. "Mama," Tunde said gently, approaching her, "I think I find something way belong to you." When he handed her the untouched bag, every naira accounted for, Mama Ngozi collapsed to her knees in the middle of the road, weeping, clutching his hands, calling him an angel sent by God. Someone nearby filmed the entire scene on a phone. By the next morning, it had been picked up by a local news blog. By the following week, it had reached national television.
He has shown us the true spirit
The conductor
of
who
Nigeria.
returned millions. Lagos' honesty story goes viral. The story spread faster than either of them could process. Journalists tracked Tunde down at the park, cameras and microphones shoved toward him as he tried
Tunde,
awkwardly
what does
to explain
honesty mean
himself.
to you?
It's the
"I just do
foundation
what
of
any
everything.
correct person supposed
Without
to,"
it, we
he
have
told one
nothing.
reporter, visibly uncomfortable with the attention. "The money no be mine. Simple." But Lagos, and soon all of Nigeria, didn't see it as simple at all. They saw a man who had returned a fortune while living in poverty himself, a man whose honesty had not wavered even when desperation offered him every excuse to look away. Messages poured in. Strangers sent small gifts of appreciation. And then came a call that changed everything. From Mr. Adaeze, a respected transport entrepreneur who owned one of the largest fleet companies in Lagos. "I've been in this business 30 years, Mr. Adaeze told Tunde over a cup of tea in his modest but well-furnished office. "I have never met a conductor with your integrity. I want you to manage one of my depots. Real salary, real structure, real growth. Are you ready?" Tunde could barely speak. "Sir, I never managed anything before. I no even finished school." "Character," Mr. Adaeze said simply, "is a qualification money cannot buy. I'll train you on the rest." Tunde took the job. Within a year, under his management, the depot's efficiency and driver satisfaction soared because Tunde treated every driver and conductor the way he had always wished to be treated, with fairness, respect, and dignity. Within 2 years, he had saved enough to enroll in evening business classes, finally returning to the education he had sacrificed years earlier. Within 3 years, with Mr. Adage's mentorship and a small loan built on trust rather than collateral, Tunde launched his own transport company, one built on a simple, radical promise: honest fares, fair wages, and dignity for every driver and conductor who worked under his name. Meanwhile, Adaeze completed her final year at Unilag with first-class honors. Her name read aloud at graduation to a hall that included classmates who had once mocked her. And this time, there was no laughter in the room, only quiet, grudging respect. She began her legal career at a mid-sized firm, taking on cases for underprivileged clients whenever she could, cases that reminded her, always, of the man who had taught her that dignity wasn't handed down by birth. It was built, choice by choice, sacrifice by sacrifice. They were, for the first time since the photo that upended their lives, finally standing on solid ground. We're getting close to the ending now, and trust me, it's worth staying for. But before we continue, if this story has gripped you even a little, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. It genuinely helps this channel grow. Now, back to Adaeze and Tunde, because Lagos has one more test waiting for them. The call came on an otherwise ordinary Wednesday morning. Adaeze's mother, voice hollow with panic, told her that her father's company, the empire he had built over 30 years,
Adaeze, the company is collapsing.
What?
Trusted business
We are
partners
losing
had
everything.
orchestrated a fraud scheme using falsified shipping documents, siphoning millions before disappearing, leaving her father to face the banks, the lawsuits, and the ruin alone. "He's not eating," her mother whispered over the phone. "He hasn't slept in days. Adaeze, I know things between you and him are not right, but I don't know who else to call." Adaeze felt the old wound reopen, the ultimatum, the suitcase, the door closing behind her that night. But beneath the hurt was something stronger. She was still his daughter. She told Tunde that night, expecting perhaps hesitation, given how her father had treated him. Instead, Tunde simply asked, "Wouldn't we fit do to help?" "You don't have to," Adaeze said quietly. "After everything he said about you." "Adaeze," Tunde interrupted gently, "the man na your papa. And I sabe what they feel like to watch person way you love, they suffer with nothing to do. If I fit help, I go help. No condition attached." Using the trust and network he'd built across Lagos's transport and business community over the past 3 years, drivers who moved goods for the very partners under suspicion, contacts within logistics circles who owed him favors for his fairness, Tunde quietly began asking questions. Within 2 weeks, he had uncovered a paper trail the official investigators had missed. Falsified delivery manifests routed through a shell company registered to one of the very partners who had betrayed her father. He brought the evidence not to the police first, but to Adaeze, now a practicing lawyer with the skill to know exactly how to use it. Working around the clock, Adaeze built a case using Tunde's evidence, presenting it to investigators with the precision her legal training had sharpened. Within a month, the fraud was exposed, key assets were recovered, and her father's company, battered but alive, began the long road to recovery. Her father summoned them both to his house. He stood in the same doorway where he had once delivered his ultimatum, but this time, his shoulders were bowed, his pride visibly humbled. "I judged you," he said to Tunde, voice thick with something between shame and gratitude. "By your clothes, by your job, by things that mean nothing about a man's heart. You could have let me fall. Instead, you saved everything I built, the same man I threw my daughter out for choosing." He extended his hand, something raw and sincere in his eyes. "I was wrong. Please forgive an old fool." Tunde took his hand firmly. "No vex, sir. We all get things where we still they learn." Adaeze's mother wept, this time tears of relief, not shame, and pulled her daughter into an embrace that lasted a long, healing minute. The wedding took place on a warm Saturday in December, beneath strings of golden lights in a garden that overlooked the Lagos Lagoon. It was, by every account of those who attended, unlike any wedding Lagos high society had seen. Professors from Unilag sat at tables beside Danfo drivers who had once worked alongside Tunde. Market women who remembered a young man returning honest change danced beside senior lawyers from Adaeze's firm. Mr. Adaeze gave a toast that made the entire hall erupt in laughter and applause. Even Bimpe, the classmate whose photograph had once threatened to destroy everything, attended, approaching Adaeze quietly during the reception to apologize, an apology Adaeze accepted with more grace than most would have managed. Adaeze's father walked her down the aisle himself, his voice breaking as he whispered, "I'm proud of you. I should have said it sooner." When Tunde spoke his vows, his voice, the same voice that had once shouted fares across chaotic Lagos traffic, trembled with a different kind of urgency entirely. "Adaeze, you see me when nobody else did," he said, holding both her hands. "You see beyond wet and I day wear, beyond wet and I day do, straight to who I be. I promise make I never give you reason to regret say you choose love over everything else." There was not a dry eye in that garden. In the years that followed, Adaeze established a scholarship fund specifically for the children of transport workers, drivers, conductors, mechanics, ensuring that no child would have to abandon their education the way Tunde once had to abandon his. Tunde expanded his transport company across 3 states, but never forgot where he came from. Every year, he personally mentored young conductors, encouraging them toward night classes, toward dignity, toward the same second chance life had once given him. They became known, not for wealth or status, but for something far rarer in a city like Lagos: genuine, unwavering integrity. And whenever people asked Adaeze how she knew, all those years ago on a crowded, chaotic Danfo bus, that the loud conductor everyone else dismissed was the man she was meant to spend her life with, she would smile the same way every time. "I didn't know," she'd say. "I just refused to let Lagos decide his worth for me. The value of a person is not measured by the dust on their feet, but by the truth in their heart. Those who judge only by appearance often walk right past the greatest treasures life ever offers them." If this story touched you the way it touched us telling it, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let us know in the comments. Who did you root for more, Adaeze or Tunde? We read every single comment, and we've got even more powerful stories like this one coming your way. Thank you for watching.